The energy sector remains one of the least gender diverse sectors in Africa, according to the International Energy Agency, which says that closing this gender gap will be vital as women are key drivers of innovative and inclusive solutions. The agency suggests that a clean energy transition will require innovative solutions and business models to be adopted and greater participation from a diverse talent pool. To further discuss this inequality in the energy sector, we are now joined on the line from Nigeria by Rolake Akinkugbe-Filani, leading energy and infrastructure sector executive and advisory board member of the Africa Energy Chamber. Rolake, thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you. Good to be here.
Can you talk to us about how you think women in energy can help influence the recovery of the energy sector?
It's absolutely vital. I mean, we've been talking about a post-COVID recovery around the world. It's hard to think about a recovery in the economic context without about half your workforce or your population, which is about the average representation of women across most African economies. But going beyond that, I think one of the things that I'm really hopeful about is that the energy transition is throwing up more opportunities for economic participation by women. You know, if we take the emerging energy sector, such as renewable energy, we've seen that with the clean energy transition, women tend to be affected disproportionately by the effects of climate change. So here is a real opportunity to improve female participation and representation in key sectors, particularly around economic recovery and the energy transition.
And what is the importance of empowering women in the energy sector?
Well, you know, the energy sector historically has been seen as an industry with hard hearts and boots. So it's always had this very macho image. And you know, let's face it, women are lagging behind. But we always say that if you catch them early, it then increases the pool. So we need to really, really look at STEM education for women and girls at a very young stage. But over and beyond that, when they then get into the workplace in the energy sector, it's about the work environment. It goes beyond just flexible work structures or parental leave structures. It also has to do with the corporate culture, the recruitment practices, and the opportunities for women to ascend and be trained and mentored into leadership. I've always said that the more women we see, the more other women are likely to be inspired to go into the energy sector.
And now talk to us about gender inequality in the sector. How does it look right now?
The statistics are not so great. I mean, if we look at what the IEA has said globally, let's even take it from the technology perspective. Women are listed in less than 11% of patent applications related to the energy sector. And from my observation, that is not for a lack of innovation and creativity among women folk. I think part of it is really just the access to opportunities. It's beyond just access to funding. It's actually the networks. Right? Because if you look at what happens with what we see as the old boys clubs, it's about the networks and the willingness to mentor and sponsor women, either as entrepreneurs in the space or for big multinationals to ensure that they have gender-sensitive value chain. That's a really, really important point. So I would say that, you know, that statistics just gives you an idea of the huge gender equality and equity gap. And it's the fairness and equal access to opportunities that we're talking about. But it goes back to what I said about building up the pool from an early stage, which then broadens and widens the pickings for management and leadership or entrepreneurship in the future.
And what is the impact of the COVID-19 pandemic on the energy industry in Africa?
Well, it's a really interesting question because one of the interesting things we're seeing is that in terms of utilities across the whole, consumption and demand in households have increased. We've seen job losses. We've seen many breadwinners in fact, single-parent work structures where you have women. We've seen a huge impact on income and purchasing power. Women have been disproportionately affected because on the front lines as well, they have been affected. But the flip side of this, we've also seen an emerging tide of entrepreneurial opportunities to supply power into key sectors such as manufacturing and particularly healthcare. So I think that is a real opportunity for change. But I think the other impact of the COVID-19 pandemic is, in some ways, it's leveling the playing field again, right? Everybody's going back to the drawing board. Everybody now realizes that in order for us to get out of recession and to move forward, we really have to empower women. So I think this is a wake-up call to industry, to companies, to governments and policymakers, that the only way we can get ahead is if we ensure we take along the entire population with us. And women make up a huge part of that future drive for development and sustainable development more specifically.
And finally, how can the sector reshape itself for a post-COVID-19 comeback?
I think the sector within the continent has to realize that, the quest for climate change policies that are environmental friendly is not mutually exclusive of the need for Africa to develop existing hydrocarbons resources. I've always been a big believer in the fact that Africa needs multiple fuel sources, right? And we need to power residential markets, we need to power commercial and industrial markets. So the clarion call is we have to use what we have to get what we want. And I think women themselves are huge capital resources in this game of balancing Africa's energy future.
All right. Well, Rolake, thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you very much. Nice to be here.
It was nice to have you. And that was Rolake Akinkugbe-Filani, leading energy and infrastructure sector executive and advisory board member of the Africa Energy Chamber, joining us on the line from Nigeria.